There's a man I know whom I recently visited with, and he's been traveling the world. He retired very early in life. He's in his 50s. Healthy, still a good-looking guy. He's been single his whole life and has been working hard, obviously. He didn't come from wealth, he came from poverty actually, and has been saving and working and being very disciplined with his finances to the point of now being in his 50s, and he sold his house and he's traveling the world and enjoying life. And I've always liked this gentleman. Very kind, peaceful man. And this was the first time I asked him. I had never asked him before. I always knew that he had never really gotten hitched, not even the girlfriend. And I asked him, have you considered ever finding a partner? And he said, well, yeah, but it's too risky. And the closer he would get to his financial goal, which he had been working toward his whole working life, the more risk averse he became. And I think we all know what he means by it's risky. And it confirms my observation, or perhaps it's a belief more than an observation, that relationships are increasingly becoming a symbol of privilege or insanity, or the opposite of being risk averse. Because I think there is, both genders take a risk when they get in relationships. Women risk their physical safety because they don't know if the guy is insane. And they also, if they stay with him, the longer they stay with a man, the more they risk spending their youthful, fertile years on someone. So, ironically, sometimes the more committed the man is, the more fear the woman might feel as the years go by because she starts to age. And so women sacrifice safety, they sacrifice youth and beauty and fertility. Men sacrifice possibly having a roof over their heads, or in the case of my friend, being able to retire young and travel the world and bear the fruits of his labor. So men risk finances, men risk money is really what they risk. And as world population has exploded and financial stability has become far harder to find in modernity, I think that the reason many men are not going into relationships is fundamentally out of fear and not being filthy rich. So men that are not risk averse and don't believe there's anything risky about getting in a relationship, those men will get in relationships, of course. But the men who are kind of see things clearly and are doing okay, they're getting by, those men are not going to get in relationships. The only men that will are men who are filthy rich and can afford the expense of the risk that may come. And so I think what's going to happen is this weird split in reproductive strategies in humanity, where people who are very poor and uneducated will continue to multiply, and then people who are very wealthy and rich will become almost polygamous in nature, where these high-performing men will end up having many children from many women. And it doesn't have to be literal polygamy. It could be the man marries one woman for a year and then they get divorced and he marries another woman the next year, like a lot of wealthy men tend to do even today. That's almost like, I think that's called serial monogamy, but at the end of the day, the big picture of it is it's a polygamous system, fundamentally, where one man is using many women to have offspring. And that means that people who are in the middle, people who are just average men who get by, they do well, they're successful, but they're not hyper successful. And they're also educated and smart enough to understand what risks are involved in different choices that one would make. Perhaps we could say men who have the most potential. Those men are not going to have offspring. And so we're going to see more and more of a disparity in society in terms of the kinds of people that we create. Now, it's quite possible that even people on the lower end of the spectrum that are very impoverished may not multiply either. That it may be entirely an enterprise of the elite. Because wealthy men don't discriminate on status when it comes to choosing women. And so we may see women that come from these poor neighborhoods, at least the most beautiful among them, being swept up by that hypergamous, polygamous system that is gradually being created in modernity. So anyway, meeting this old friend of mine made me think of that. Because, you would think of him as being wealthy because he can retire in his 50s. But that, if he were to get into the wrong relationship, everything he had worked for to achieve that could easily disappear. And he would have to go back into the workforce, now perhaps in his 60s, and good luck getting a job in your 60s, at least in the field that he was in. Good luck. And so it could, even someone who has achieved that level of financial stability can't risk the financial risks that might come out of getting into a relationship in the West. So you have to kind of break through beyond that threshold in terms of wealth. You need to have such an engine of wealth that you've produced that you can risk things going haywire. So anyway, I'm curious what you think of that hypothesis or observation, and whether or not you are seeing that play itself out in your life or in the life of others. Thanks for watching.